Hello and welcome to my series on how I built a smoker. This project actually happened about a year ago, and what I'd like to show in this is how I originally worked, how I planned it out. When I do a lot of project work, I do it when I'm thinking about it, I do it with what's to hand. So I mainly actually work in, unfortunately, A4 pucker pads. I always have one on me, I'm always in meetings and just doing sketching, and that's where a lot of my work takes place. So the first thing that I did was I was thinking about, I wanted to make some jerky, I wanted to smoke some meat, and I didn't know whether I wanted a smoker or a dehydrator. And originally when I was planning this, I was trying to do both. So you're going to see notes for things like a PC fan or a fan on top of it to get that airflow going through. And it's actually something I'd still like to play with. And then of course, because it's a smoker, either hot or cold, I've got a thermometer in it. So the first thing I did was started drawing orthographic views, sketching it out, thinking about maybe the height, the width, the depth, how I wanted it to look, what I wanted to do with it. And then the reason for having many shelves was, as I said, I was unsure if I wanted to do jerky or not. I started looking at things for smoking, cold smoking, and essentially building up a little frame to put wood chips or pellets in that burn round to allow it to burn for a longer time. And then what I did was I started grounding the project in reality. So what these are is, these are the sizes of stainless steel racks I could purchase. So I got the size, the price. I wanted 3 to start with, although I think I can hold maybe 4 or 5 in the finished item. And what I started doing was planning it out. Working around items I knew I couldn't manufacture, items that I knew I'd have to purchase, and designing the sizes around this. And in the end I went for an internal diameter of 10 inches by 15 inches. This is the frame that I ended up building. So again, a few more notes on it. Thinking of hot or cold smoke, I knew if I wanted hot smoke I need a heat source in it, so started drawing out a firebox. I also wanted an air vent at the base of it, and that allows air for both of them to flow up and then out of the top of the unit. And that was originally what I had this for, the fan at the top and a larger air vent at the bottom to allow that airflow through in case I was trying to smoke, in case I was trying to dehydrate some meat to make jerky. I also found some aluminium angle. This was what I found, 15 by 15 by 3. That was available to me. So again, when planning the sizes, I designed it around what I had to hand. And these are some of the decisions I made as I went along. You'll see it's starting to come along a bit more now in terms of size, and what we've got is we've got a salt drying tray or perhaps a drip tray. So this was a tray to go in along the bottom. The idea being it'd help if I put some drips or water in it, I can get a colder, more indirect heat if I want to smoke something like cheese, because that's something I've tried, and one of the things I found was that the heat melts some of the oil out the cheese that doesn't make it last as long. And then I looked at, do I want to put a fan in the base? I.e., if I want it to be a dehydrator, if I want to blow that warm air along it, is the fan going to go in the base? This wasn't an idea I went with in the end. Actually, what I've done is I've gone purely for smoking, hot and cold smoking, and I thought about using something like a hot air gun going through the door, and this is a modification I might do on the version I've got currently, just to test the idea. From there, what I went into was actually the planning stage. So as you can see, I've got 4 shelves, I've got a slotted grill here, and this slotted grill means that I can put coals under it or on it. I've got a lid that slides in and out, and later on you'll see that. And when I started drawing up the nets, now these were the nets for the items that I'll get water jet cut in the next video. And one of the things I would say is, if I did this again, if I made this again, I wouldn't make it in the same way. Having been through the project, I've learned so much about making it. I'd actually probably do a C-shaped sides to make the bending easier, and then a single plate top and bottom to clip on, and that'd be both for the internal and the external wall. That's something I'd not mentioned yet. I was going to do an internal and an external wall so that I've got this cavity, and in this cavity around the edge my plan is to put a heat resistant wool, like a rock wool, into it. And the point of this is so I can keep that heat in, so if I am hot smoking I can keep that heat in, if I am cold smoking I keep some of the outside ambient temperature out. So this was another thing I was thinking of when drawing up my design work. I then did a list of items to purchase, And what I've got in the description is a link to some of the items off Amazon, some of the things I thought I'd need. Because one of the problems I have with doing lots of projects and having the half a job log and all that is actually financing, affording projects. So pricing it out, working out everything that I'd need before I start the project tells me if the project's financially viable. So I've got items like the racks that I know I need to buy, I've got the heater or the fan, door latches, door seals. This is actually something I've never put on and hasn't affected the performance yet. Heatproof blanket, that's something I needed that I talked about within the walls. 4 feet, didn't end up using. Power socket didn't end up using. Power cable didn't end up. But the mesh, all the external vents have wire mesh on to prevent flies from getting in. So in case I wanted to create jerky, I wanted to dehydrate meat, I've got some fine wire mesh to keep flies out. I've got a meat thermometer, so obviously I can control the temperature. I've got that vent at the top I can open and close, so that was something I needed to get an accurate temperature. And then this pellet smoker. I wanted a 30mm long pellet smoker so I could actually cold smoke items. Ran the pricing, and that, as I say, allows me to know if the project's viable. And this was it. This was my final drawn up design for it. As you'll see in the following videos, it's very close, but I've got a vent at the bottom with no padding under it. I did have 4 feet, although I've changed that to a frame. I've got 4 separate racks for heat and a rack that I've got there either to use as a cold tray, a heat tray or a water tray. And by a water tray, that's in case I really want to keep a barrier between the heat of a cold smoker and something like cheese. I've got the slidable vent at the top so I can control airflow. I can trap in a lot of that smoke, a lot of that heat. I did have a control panel on the front for when I wanted to mount a fan, but this was something that changed during manufacture. So that's really how I plan a project. And what I hope is that you'll follow along with this series. You'll see the next video from a year ago when actually I made this first test, and then through conversations with colleagues I'm actually thinking about doing a second version of this, taking into account some of the improvements I talked about with how I'd manufacture it and make a better version to perhaps have maybe an indirect smoker with a second heat box. So I hope you follow along. Please consider subscribing, and thank you for watching.